have you ever looked at your Final Fantasy XIV achievements and been like, man, I really want that orchestrion, but I don't know how to play Mahjong? Or maybe even, dang, I really want that title and the portrait plate pieces, but I really don't know how to play Mahjong. Well, I have good news for you. I learned Mahjong for the sole purpose of getting that orchestrion roll, and you can too. What's my experience? Let's not talk about that. Anyway, let's go! So, let's take a look at what even is Riichi Mahjong. What is the goal of this game? We are going to make winning hands consisting of 14 tiles, grouped into 4 groups of 3 and 1 pair. How do we do this? Well, on each player's turn, you will draw a tile and discard another. You can also take discards from other players. Now, let's talk about probably the most daunting thing. So let's break down the most important part of the game, the tiles. There are 3 suits: bamboo, dots, and characters, and they come in numbers 1 through 9. Then there is the group called honor tiles, which have 2 groups: the winds, which come in cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, and the dragons, which come in 3 colors, white, green, and red. And there are 4 of every tile in each Mahjong set that we play Domin Mahjong with. Next, let's talk about those groups of 3 tiles, or as 14 calls them, melds. There are 2 main types: triplets, which, as the name suggests, are groups of 3 of the same tile. For example, north, 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 or 1 bamboo, 1 bamboo, 1 bamboo are triplets. The other main type is a sequence, which are 3 in order. For example, 1, 2, 3 of characters, or perhaps 5, 6, 7 of dots. But note that this does not wrap around, so 9, 1, 2 of bamboo does not work. Also, because honors do not have numbers, they cannot form a sequence meld. And finally, the pair meld. This is exactly what it sounds like, 2 of the same tile. Finally, let's talk about those things that the game prompts you to do that you're probably not sure what they even do anyway. These are calls. First, we have the pon. This is taking a discard from someone to finish a triplet. This can be done off of any player. If, for example, you have these tiles in your hand and a player drops the same tile, you can do a pon to take that tile. Next, we have a chi. This is taking a discard from the player to your left only to finish a sequence. For example, if you have these tiles and your player to your left discards one of these tiles, you can call a chi. As a note, pon is stronger than chi. Then we have a kan. This one I would say don't worry too much as a new player. This is essentially a special form of pon where instead of finishing a triplet, you finish a quad, which says that you have all of that tile in your hand. Like I said, don't worry too much about it. It's special. Note that by doing any of these calls, you lock that meld in place. You can no longer change it, as well as revealing that meld to the entire table. Next, we have the call that the game is essentially named after, Riichi, which is kind of like calling Uno in Uno. You have to bet 1,000 points to announce that you're 1 tile away from winning. You can no longer change your hand, and you can only discard the tile that you draw, assuming it doesn't finish your hand. Also, you cannot have called tiles from other players. So if you have tiles to your right that are visible for everyone to see, you can no longer call Riichi. So, how do we call that we win? Well, there are 2 winning calls. Ron, which is taking a discard from someone else to win your hand. And secondly, tsumo, which is calling a winning hand from a tile that you drew. Do remember that you must have at least one Yaku to be able to do either of these two calls. If you don't have a Yaku, then you can't actually win. For now, we will wrap up our vocabulary lesson here. There are, of course, and I'm sure some of you are shouting at your screen, what about this? Talk about the Dora! Talk about open and closed hands! What are you doing? What about this and that and the other thing? Yes, I know. I know. But we're trying to make this video easier and less daunting. So for now, that is the terminology we are going to stick with. Later on, or perhaps in another video, we'll discuss extra terminology that can help you get more points and understand the game more thoroughly. But I think these are the bare minimum to understanding the game enough to kind of sort of enjoy playing. So for now, we'll stop our lesson here. And now, let's get to the next daunting part of the game. The winning hands, or as they are called, Yaku. Let's get to the next daunting part of this game. Because if the terminology list didn't scare enough people away, the Yaku list will! Anyway, my advice, as a relatively meh player, is to pick a few Yaku that you find easy to remember and easy to remember how to make. And just focus on those when you're starting. Of course, if you have a dual monitor or a phone, you can open up a Yaku list on the side as you play to help yourself. And I do recommend that, actually. But for now, let's just get into explaining the Yaku and what they are. So, unfortunately, we have a handful to go through, so let's get started. Our first Yaku is technically 5 different Yaku. They are the Yaku tiles, or Yaku-hai. Yaku tiles are essentially the honor tiles. If you make triplets of any of the dragons, they are actually a winning hand. So 3 red dragons is red dragon, that's the Yaku. Or 3 green dragon is the green dragon Yaku. Very easy to remember, very easy to make. The winds, however, have a bit of an extra condition around them. Each cardinal direction is only worth points to you under 2 conditions. The first is the round wind. You will see it when each round starts. It will say things like East 1, East 2, East 3. That means East is worth points for every player. This is generally going to be the only one that's the round wind in 14, as you're probably doing short games. But in the event you do a longer game, South will be worth points in the South rounds. Next is the seat wind, which is based on which wind direction you are assigned as your seat for that round. In Final Fantasy XIV, this will be located in this spot on the player box. Next, we have Tanyao. Don't worry too much about these names, by the way. This one is no terminals, which means 1s and 9s, and no honor tiles, so no dragons or winds. It's pretty easy to remember that honestly I kind of forget that it's a hand. Here are some examples. Next, we have another one with an untranslated name, Bifu, which is sequences only, which by logic means that no honors can be here as well, as it must be numbered tiles. Also, this Yaku has a unique requirement in that the final tile to finish your hand must be one of 2 options to finish a sequence. Next, we have all pon. It is exactly what it says on the tin though. Everything is a triplet. Next, we have all pon's sibling, I guess you could say, triple pon, where instead of all 4 melds being pon, this time there are only 3 of them and 1 sequence. Now that we've gone through our pon brothers, let's go to their chi cousin, triple chi. This is the same number sequence in all 3 suits. So you must have, for example, 1, 2, 3 in characters, dots, and bamboo. Perhaps another cousin we could say is the pure straight. This is 1 through 9, every single number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, in a single suit. In any of them, characters, bamboo, or dots. Again, it's pretty easy to remember because it feels like, oh, of course, put 1 to 9 together. Easy peasy. Next, another one I'd call pretty easy to remember is all terminals and honors. This means that you can only have tiles that are either numbered 1 or 9, or the wind tiles and dragons. You can have any combination of them, but it also pretty much makes it exclusive to Pon. You cannot have sequences because 2s and 3s and 8s and 7 and 8s are not terminals. Next, we have the flush brothers, the half flush, which is the hand being a single suit plus honors. So, for example, you only have character tiles, and then you have like winds and dragons hanging out in there. And its older brother, I guess, with this weird analogy that I'm making, is the full flush. This is the hand as a single suit, as you would expect. No honors. Both of these I'd say are pretty easy to remember, but they're maybe a bit difficult to make. I especially think at some point the other players might realize what you're doing, which makes it harder. We're coming back round to the pawns. This is 3 concealed pawn. This is exactly what it says on the tin, with the conceal part meaning that you have never called, so you have no tiles off to your right. This is pretty easy to remember, but because you can't take tiles from away from somebody, it's reliant on luck, so good luck to you. Next, we have 3 kan. It is exactly what it says on its tin, by being 3 groups of all 4 of the same tile. Next, we have what is actually my favorite, Yaku. Not very smart decision of me, but it is my favorite. 7 pairs. It is exactly what it says on the tin. You have no groups of 3, you have only pairs. The thing is, you cannot take from anybody. You must draw every single one of them. Except the last one. Good luck. Next, we're getting into, we have some double chi brothers. The pure double chi. This is 2 identical sequences in the same suit. For example, you have 2, 3, 4 twice. So it'll show up in your hand like 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4 of bamboo. Next, we have the twice pure double chi, which is 2 identical sequences in the same suit twice. Next, we have some more terminal friends.
Bruh.
Wait, that sounds bad. We have some more 1 and 9 friends. The outside hand, which means that a terminal or honor tile is in every grouping. This is one of them where you can have like 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, and then like east, 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 for example. Then there is terminals in all groups. This one means that you can't have honors in the hand. You have to have 1s and 9s in every grouping. Next, we have a bit of a fancy sounding one, little 3 dragons. This is triplets of 2 dragons. For example, red and white, and a pair of the other one. There are a few other Yaku that are more situational, so I don't think that they are necessary to cover here. There's also the extremely powerful Yakuman, but they are incredibly difficult to make, and I don't think that they are necessary to know from the get-go. I think it is best to focus on your standard Yaku that you're more likely to get than try to memorize the Yakuman. So for now, that will be all of the Yaku we will cover today. So Final Fantasy XIV does have a bunch of support features. And I'd like to just kind of go over them relatively quickly to give you an idea of if you want to turn some of them off or on to help you. The buttons from left to right are calls on or off, auto-declare lone/sumo, hints on or off, danger tile markers, tile name displays, and chat on and off. This is the player list. It was added later, so I forgot it. These icons here are the default settings. I am pretty lazy and leave them on. You can turn hints off if you find it a nuisance and wish to ignore it more than listen to it. And at the very least in the beginning, I do recommend keeping on tile names and danger tile markers. For the record, the danger tile markers use the aggro symbols to tell you whether the AI, or the computer, thinks that tile is dangerous to discard, meaning another player might win if you discard it. You can use this, especially late game, to figure out whether and which tile you want to discard if you really don't want to lose. Again, I've been playing pretty casually, and I just leave them all on. I just leave the defaults on as laziness, perhaps. So I don't think it's too much to fiddle with any of them. And as the last one I mentioned, chat on and off, you can use party chat to talk with the 4 players that you are playing against. And I recommend it. It makes the game a little bit more fun. Don't give away your hand though, that's silly. Just, you can tell them after you lost. And with that, I will wrap up for today. I think that should be enough of a crash course to get you in on the basics. There are, of course, tons of other vocabulary and more Yaku that I didn't cover today, but I think that these should be able to get you in and get you started trying to understand Riichi Mahjong. It's okay if you lose a lot, don't worry. The game has a stupid amount of luck. So don't be afraid to reset your ranking if you get to that point and are after those rewards. Don't be afraid, it's okay. And unfortunately, North American queues can be kind of poopy doo-doo, and prime time may be the only time you can really queue for them. But if we have more people playing, of course, the queues will happen more often. And of course, my final advice is, it's okay if you suffer because RNG sucks. Anyway, in my next video, I'll go over a bit more vocabulary that can help you understand the game a bit more, and hopefully get you a few more points every hand, and the various Yaku that I skipped for today's video. If you want to see more, make sure to hit that subscribe button and maybe even that ding-dong bell for me. And if you want to watch me play Final Fantasy XIV, I stream live every Saturday to Wednesday on Twitch. You can see the link right here. I hope to see you next video. Good luck on your Mahjong. Bye bye. Oyasumi Mimi. Bye bye.
Hey yo. Hey yo. お前の名前誰や Hey yo. Hey 2番何落ちたんだっけ2番クリーム Hey yo お前の名前オコリンボ Hey yo 麻雀負けて悔しいよ